The AT may be the most famous hiking trail in the world, but not everyone has the time to hike all the way from Georgia to Maine, or vice versa, in one go. Section hiking is a great way to get a taste of the trail without the time commitment. And there's not official sections, it just means walking a chunk at a time, so you can go for as long or as short as you'd like. Some people even complete section hike after section hike after section hike until they've done the entire length of the trail, which is called a myth, a multi-year through hike, because usually a through hike means going from terminus to terminus within 1 year. You hear people talking about a LASH, that is a long ass section hike, and there's no defining length I could find for that. I think some people think of it as 2 weeks or more. Some people, if it's long ass to you, then it's a LASH. A note about this video, if you're already an experienced, very confident backpacker, there's not much I'm gonna say that's gonna surprise you. Some things to know are if you're going to Shenandoah National Park or Great Smoky Mountain National Park, there are backpacking permits you need to get. If you're going to the White Mountains in New Hampshire, there are fees for the campsites because there's usually a caretaker, and it just helps maintain things because it's a very busy part of the trail. If you want to know more about the White Mountains, I do have a whole video about that if you're going, but just the main thing you need to know is the logistics for camping are a little different. If you want to avoid or purposely join the bubble of through hikers, then there's a website called wherearethehikers.com that you can use to plan around that. On the other hand, if you've never been backpacking before, this video isn't really meant to be a super comprehensive guide on backpacking in general. I would also research, trail etiquette, safety, what gear you need, how to use that gear, and what to expect physically, because it is a pretty big workout. Just think of this video as a checklist or a guide for this specific type of backpacking trip. Alrighty, now diving right in, where are you going to hike? If you already know where you're gonna hike, awesome, you can skip steps 1 through 3. Just make sure you get a map with water sources, topography / contour lines / the lines that show you where the elevation changes, and things like side trails or nearby roads, just so you know what's around the trail. If you don't have anywhere in mind yet, but you have the ability to go anywhere along the AT, first of all, awesome. Second of all, think about what you want out of the hike. If you're looking for sweeping views, I would check out the Roan Mountains in Tennessee or Grayson Highlands in Southern Virginia. They also have wild ponies that live there. If you're looking to really challenge yourself and push yourself physically while also having some very beautiful scenery, I would look at the White Mountains of New Hampshire or Southern Maine. If you're looking for a part of the trail that's really remote, a real immersion into nature and wilderness, definitely look at the 100-Mile Wilderness. However, that section hike might be a little tricky to plan just because there are less roads in that area. If you're not really looking to push yourself, you want maybe something relatively easier, I would look at Shenandoah National Park. But remember, that is relatively easier. And those are just a few quick suggestions off the top of my head. I don't want to go too into detail because there's so many lists of potential section hikes out there already. I'll put some in the description if that's helpful for you. If you don't have the option to go wherever, you're more limited to what's closest to you, here's what I would do. Step 1, get a map. I personally would use the app Far Out. It's designed for hikers to use without any cell service. Hikers can comment on how flowing a water source is or if there's a lot of trees over the trail, so that's really good to have that real-time knowledge. There's also a GPS feature that can show you exactly where you are on the trail if you get a little turned around. And when you go to buy that, there's either the bundle where you can buy the whole trail, or you can buy, there's 9 specific maps to choose from, so make sure you get just what you need. Unless for some reason you want to buy the whole bundle. It doesn't have to be Far Out though, that's just what I think has the most information. Then once you have your map, what are the constraints of the trip? How long are you able to be away from your normal life? Subtract the time it'll take to drive to or from, and then how long can you spend on the trail? Then how many miles do you think you can do in a day? Planning out your daily mileage is kind of just a guess. You never know what shape you're in and what the terrain will be like unless you've been there before. If it's a total shot in the dark, just to give you a suggestion direction of where to start. I think 8 miles a day is a pretty reasonable estimate for most people. That being said, if you're going somewhere known to be challenging, maybe even less than that. Once you have an idea of how many miles you can cover, start thinking transportation logistics. Are you able to go in a group that has multiple cars and you can leave them at each end of the trail? Like, for example, let's say person A, person B are both driving their cars to where you're gonna finish, park person B's car, they get in person A's car, drive to the start, hike, get in person B's car, go to person A's car, they get out, they both go on their merry way. If that's not possible, do you know someone that might be willing to pick you up and drop you off? And if you're just driving yourself, is there a side trail or maybe a walkable road you can use to make a loop? And if not, there's always just doing it out and back. Once you know how that's going to work, step 3 is searching the map, trying to find something that'll work for you. Like, say, okay, I have 3 days that I can hike for. I can probably cover 24 miles. I'm just gonna drive myself, so I need to look for a loop. If I can't find a loop, then I'll find a scenic point and maybe pick a spot 12 miles away where I can park, walk to that, walk back. Something like that, for example. So now let's say you found what you think works for you. One of the first things I'd look at is the elevation profile. How hilly is it gonna be? Like anything, it can look different on the chart versus when you get out there. But it's better to have an idea and know somewhat what to expect than going in blind. Also, if you notice you're doing a bunch of straight uphill climbs and really gradual downhills that you don't even notice, can you go the opposite direction so that it makes it a little more enjoyable for you? Next, look at the water sources. Are they pretty far apart? Do they look like they're flowing in the time of year that you're gonna go? Again, things can change by the time you get there, but better to have an idea than not. That way you'll know how much carrying capacity you need to take, aka how many bottles or bladders, how big they need to be, how much water you can carry. And then what are the campsite possibilities? I like to make myself a little plan with how many miles each day and where I'm planning to stop, and it'll probably change. Maybe you'll be more energetic than you think, maybe you'll be less energetic the first day or whatever day, and things will change, but at least you've familiarized yourself with the map and what possibilities are out there. It's a whole different thing to look at the map kind of like from a bird's eye view. Okay, I'm gonna start here and end here, versus when you're on the trail and you're zooming in, oh, there's so many things I didn't realize because I only looked from far away. I didn't really zoom in. And remember, you can always go back to the drawing board. If the elevation, the water sources, the campsites are looking kind of not what you expected, maybe there's another part of the trail that would suit you better. Once you know for sure where you're going, look out for alerts or special regulations for that area. For example, have bears been getting into people's food where you're going? Are you going to Tennessee and there's no privies there, so you need to know the L&T bathroom procedure? If you're going to Georgia, there's a few miles where you need a bear canister if you're going to camp within those few miles. Just Googling works. You could also look at recent far out comments or talk to a ranger or someone that looks after the area you're going to. Next, you need to gather and make sure you know how to use all of your gear. Make sure you get all the food, fuel for your stove, a lighter, restock toilet paper, restock first aid stuff. And then, with any trip, check the weather and plan accordingly, and tell someone where you're going and when to expect you back. Then it's time to make it happen and get out there. If you have anything to add or a question about something I've said, please let me know. Other than that, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful section hike.